Hey, Luis here. This is a square wave produced by the Moog Mother 32 inside of this modular system at SDSU's Sound Laboratory. Now, this what the heck? Now, all of that was me having fun with the entire modular system here. Now, nowadays, you don't need something that costs thousands and thousands of dollars to create something similar. You can get by with just a laptop and some fairly decently priced software. But that wasn't always the case. The kind of equipment that we have nowadays did not resemble the equipment we had during the 50s, the 60s, the 70s when all of this started booming. Who were the people that started experimenting with such sounds? How did the music community react to this? Was this always the case? And do people even use this anymore? Back in the fine year of 1979, in A Guide to Electronic Music, Paul Griffiths quotes composer Edgar Varese in a 1916 interview, saying, "I refuse to submit to sounds that have already been heard. What I am looking for are new technical mediums which can lend themselves to every expression of thought and can keep up with that thought." Now, at this time in 1916, early instruments like the Telharmonium and the valve oscillator provoked the inspiration for the reproduction of said sounds not possible with instruments. However, once these instruments started gaining ground in larger studios later on in the 60s and 70s, in larger studios, composers jumped at the opportunity to start producing with such technology. In his 1971 paper, The Origins of Electronic Music, Karl-Heinz Stockhausen claims his piece, Electronic Study Number 1, to be the beginnings of electronic music, being produced in the studio for electronic music of the WDR in Cologne, Germany. The piece set a precedent for future study of electronics and music. Engineers and composers alike were excited for the new technological advancements and the new toys they could experiment with. Magazines in the 60s thought this was a great idea, a great new avenue for the future, and highly praised the technology in the music. The December 1961 issue of Electronics stated that the development of synthesizers can produce all possible audio tones in any combination at any amplitude and with any form of envelope shaping that will enable any imaginable contribution of tones to be played. Wow. While I think this is highly hyperbolized, I do think this quote captures the feeling many composers and engineers had about these new advancements. In fact, the vibes were so good that Lowell Cross highlights in a 1968 paper, Electronic Music, that as of September 1967, the International Electronic Music Catalog had over 5,000 compositions, and with 2,500 more compositions existing outside of it. I really don't think a lot has changed with time. I mean, there are thousands of electronic-based songs put out every day now. Today, electronic music has completely engulfed the music culture as well as the music-making process, with studios being popularized in the 1970s and the 80s with the advent of the home studio. Electronic music producers are now at the most convenient and portable time of electronic music. The analog world has even thought to be going extinct. However, there has been a rise in the analog synthesizers in recent times. When digital synths were well into replacing analog synthesizers, there was a movement from digital synth manufacturers aimed to emulate analog synthesizers. Digital producers claimed that their goal was to emulate and incorporate
analog features into digital instruments and to frame their digital instruments as analog like. The analog feel is to what people were drawn to during the early years of electronic music. And that analog gear is making a comeback. Companies like Korg and Music and Moog reissue models of analog synths like the MS-20 and the Voyager, respectively. It is time to give this old style technology a chance, or should we embrace the digital technologies that we carry on a single hand? I think we should do both. At the end of the day, music is a creative process, and the analog world is filled with possibilities you may not want to miss. So, as you saw at the very beginning of this video, I started playing with all these modular synthesizers. I felt I had a lot of fun. Now, I can only imagine what people in the 50s and 60s were going through. That analog feel that a lot of the musique concrète and the electronische music back in Germany and France, back in the 50s and 40s, what they were going through must have been crazy fun. I mean, imagine the technological advancements of the time. Now, that feel is what's driving people back towards the analog feel. You can only get so much from a laptop, but doing stuff like this, now that is music to my ears.